This is the BMW 3 Series. It's regarded as one of the best cars to drive in its segment, and even though it has been around for over 5 years now in the Indian market, it still is a special car for anyone who calls himself a keen driver. So let's jump inside and tell you what this car is all about. Well, the cabin of the 3 Series has always been a sporty place to spend time in, and it is also a completely faultless cabin. There's hardly anything that you can fault with the cabin. All the switch care and all the materials are absolutely first rate. If there is one small nitpick that I will do, it is that this stereo button for the volume control is a bit fiddly to operate because it is really very tiny. But apart from that, it is an absolutely faultless cabin. Special mention has to be made about BMW's iDrive system. It is definitely a lot more easier to operate than the Audi as well as Mercedes infotainment systems, and even when you're on the move, it is really a very easy system, an intuitive system to operate. And you also get very nice seats, which really are a very sporty set of seats over here. You get these side bolsters, which are excellent if you are pushing this car, and of course it is a BMW, so you will be pushing it in those corners. That's the main reason you buy a BMW, for the sporty handling. So these seats should hold you well, and overall the seats are relaxing and hugely comfortable. Well, but that's not all. You also get a very nice attention to detail, especially the stitching around the steering wheel. It really does feel very nice in terms of the looks, and the steering is also very good to grip. It is the perfect size steering wheel. Neither is it too large and neither is the rim too thin or too big. It is perfect for either small or even big hands, and even chubbiest of chubby hands like mine should feel comfortable holding the steering wheel and should really have a sporty feel while they hold the steering. It really is a very sporty steering wheel. Sorry about going on and on about it. Well, now let's jump in the back seat and find out if it's as good as its rivals, or is it any better. Well, here I'm in the back seat of the 3 Series, and as you can see, headroom is more than adequate, and someone who is my height, which for reference is 5'10", should be okay in these seats. Even people who are about 6 or 6'1" should be quite okay, because BMW has very smartly scooped out the roof over here to give you that extra bit of headroom. Knee room also is pretty good, and there is a little bit of place between the front seats where I can stretch my feet. So overall, it is a nice place and at par with its rivals for sheer legroom as well as headroom. There is a huge lump in the floor panel, but that should not be an issue because all its other rivals also have that lump. So in terms of space and comfort, it is at par with them. But the big advantage that this car has is that the aperture, the door aperture, is pretty wide. It is a wide opening door, and the aperture also is very squarish, so you don't really have to squirm in and get inside this car. You can easily walk into it and sit nicely and shut the door thud, and that door really does shut with a sense of authority. It really is a very nice feeling when you get inside, because you shut the door and it has that sense of authority about itself. So overall, a nice place for 2, but yes, you can of course accommodate 3, but 2 are ideal and at par with its other rivals. Well, so officially the boot on the 3 Series is 495 litres, and the aperture is also pretty wide. It's a deep boot, and it is also a very wide boot, which means that you can really load in those bags without any issue. For the airport transfer, this is a great car to send your mother-in-law back home in. There is a bit of a ledge, but it's not too deep, so you can easily lift your bags out of it. And because it is a car which is on the lower side, the boot sill isn't very high from the ground. You won't really have to put in your bag into it. So overall, a very impressive boot on the 3 Series. BMW seems to have found a very nice balance between sublime handling as well as a comfortable suspension setup. While the earlier BMW 3 Series cars used to have that harshly set up suspension, a very stiff suspension, this one seems to really be on the nicer side. Even though it is firm, it's not uncomfortably firm, and if you are going over rumble strips in the city or are going over those expansion joints while you're crossing those bridges, this car will not jolt you or will not have any of those jolts enter the cabin, because it really does soak in the bumps very well without compromising with the handling. Yes, the handling on this car is absolutely sublime. The steering wheel is by far not only the best in this segment and at this price point, but it can definitely teach a couple of other rivals which are a lot more expensive about handling prowess and overall steering wheel feedback. It really is that good. Well, what you'll also like about the 3 Series is the fact that the handling of this car is very neutral, and if you are going to be pushing it around corners, you will definitely feel the chassis, which is excellent in terms of the weight balance. It has great balance across the front and rear axle. In fact, it is almost 50-50 bias between the front and rear axle in terms of the overall weight balance, and that gives you a sense of sportiness. And even if you are a very average driver like me, if you're not a sporty or a keen driver, even then there's lots of fun to be had from this car, and you can definitely enjoy it not only over those long highway trips but also when you are of course pushing it into those corners on those hilly sections. It really is a fantastic car for those long distance trips. So the 3 Series comes with different settings for the driver, where you can of course choose the Sport mode or you can choose the Sport Plus mode, and there's also the Comfort and the Eco mode. Now most people will be usually driving in the Comfort mode, and that's the best mode to use this car in, because that mode has the best combination of the suspension being in comfort setting as well as the steering wheel offering you good feedback. But if you want this car to be more engaging to drive than it already is, you can always choose the Sport mode over here, and that mode simply makes the gearbox feel a lot more sporty and a lot more dynamic. In fact, 0 to 100 in Sport mode comes up in a shade over 7 seconds, and that is commendable considering that this is a diesel engine car, and also considering that this diesel engine consistently returns figures in excess of 14-15 kpl when you're driving it in the city. It really goes to show you the amount of technology that has been put into this engine, because not only is it great for performance, it's also great for your wallet. Well, even though the 320D comes with a diesel engine, you won't be able to tell that it is a diesel running this car. The isolation of the cabin is so good from not only the engine but from everything on the outside. This car really does cocoon you from the world of other things outside, and there's absolutely no wind noise even at speeds in excess of 100 kph. There's no tire noise, and as I just said, there's hardly any engine noise. Even when you're really revving this engine on the highway and you're doing speeds in excess of 100 kph and the engine is spinning at around 2000 rpm, there's hardly any noise which enters the cabin. And a large part of that noise isolation also goes to the fact that this car comes with an 8-speed gearbox. Yes, it's an 8-speed gearbox, which means that when you're driving on the highway, flexibility is aided in a great way. And when you're doing speeds in excess of 100 kph, the engine is spinning at about 1700 1800 rpm, which means that the cabin really feels like a nice and relaxed place to be in. This car really does deserve to be called the best driver's car in this segment. And as I just said, every time you take this car out for a spin, that spin will definitely put a smile on your face, and it will be an event in itself, because it is a car which really does give you that kind of drive involvement. Well, so 320D comes across as the best German car when it comes to not only comfort but also for keen drivers, because it is a great mix of comfort as well as sporty handling. But not only that, the 320D diesel engine is very good in terms of fuel efficiency, and the new car also seems a lot more comfortable than the outgoing and the older version of this car. And essentially what I'm trying to say here is that if you're on the market for a German compact luxury car, then the new 320D is one of the best bets, if not the best bet out there for you. So definitely go ahead at a BMW showroom and check this car out. It's bye for now, and hope to see you soon.